the first tetrad, meaning the first four lines of or instructions of the Buddha. There are 16 altogether, so that divides up nicely into 4 groups of 4, and they're usually called tetrads. It's pretty well known. People will talk, oh, number 6 or number 5, or people get pretty used to those particular the instructions in the order that they're in. So in any case, this morning we'll talk about the first set, which is related to the body, and we'll hopefully also offer a guided meditation. And then this afternoon, we'll talk about the second set related to feelings. And we'll have a little more time from 1 to 4 to talk about the practice and some of the general applications of Anapanasati, and more Q&A probably then too. And then tomorrow, similarly, tetrad number 3 in the morning, tetrad 4 in the afternoon. I've also mentioned to people that they can be here for whatever period of time they're able. And thankfully, it'll be recorded, so you can always come back and listen if you miss something for some reason. So I think I'll start by just talking about Anapanasati in general a little bit, and then about these first 4 instructions, and we'll have a meditation. And I entitled this weekend, I think, something like Anapanasati for grounding and resilience. It feels like that's something that's really helpful right now, seeing how we can stay grounded in the midst of a tremendous amount of change, some of it quite impactful and upsetting perhaps, and also how we can be resilient and really bounce back when things happen that are difficult to absorb. And the reason I talked about this with Anapanasati is because working with it for a long time, I've noticed how deeply it becomes ingrained in the mind. And because of that, how easy it is to kind of shift into that kind of way of seeing the world and thinking and feeling. It's like we have the breath, which is such a powerful, important aspect of living, of course. And it's really when we're used to going to the breath for meditation, as I'm guessing many of you do, I think the breath is probably the most popular, well-used meditation object anywhere. And, really making the breath, as one teacher in particular that we all know says, really making the breath your friend. And really knowing that you can come back to just being there with your breathing when things are really rough. And it's a source of grounding. So with Anapanasati, these instructions, as the Buddha pointed out, are so powerful that we can use this as our primary mode of meditation that can take us all the way to Nibbana. It's also along the way possible to really rely on it as a source of stability. And that when we feel thrown off balance, we can come back to, any part of it and see that it's a real calming influence and giving us the strength and the stability to respond to what we're experiencing in a wholesome and beneficial way. So I'll start by talking just a little bit about the preparation for meditation using Anapanasati. And as you see, I think you have the handout. Many of you, maybe all of you, have read the Sutta. The Buddha starts with telling us that we should go to the wilderness, to the root of a tree, to an empty hut, and sit down and meditate, sit down and prepare ourselves. So, the main thing I think to kind of read into this is that we should be comfortable when we sit to meditate so that we can really stay there without feeling anxious, worried, um, disturbed in any way. So we can really let go. And that comfort that it's not gonna, and we have to adjust based on what's going on with our body. So today is not a good day for Ayya to sit down here with crossed legs in front of the shrine. Um, the knee surgery, she's supposed to have her knee up kind of pretty much all the time above her heart and ice packs and all that. And yet she can meditate. And we can adjust depending on what's happening with our body, and we can adjust as we age. And things change all the time. So whether you're in a chair, and my experience is we can do this meditation in any posture, lying down. I do use my breath sometimes when I do walking meditation, but it's not the best. It's not really the way to follow these instructions. Maybe not quite any posture is optimal. But sitting, lying down, or standing are all reasonable positions for Anapanasati, in my experience. However, having said that, for me, sitting is the way that I get the greatest depth. And that's something to also know about yourself. If your meditation is deeper in one posture or another, then it's fine to really utilize that. The whole point is that we want to be able to become calm, be able to investigate the Dhamma, let go of all the interference in the mind, drop the hindrances. Because when the way the Buddha talks about how Anapanasati leads us to full awakening is that first of all, it fulfills the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and then also the 7 factors of enlightenment. I'm going to talk more about that specifically later. But what does it take to really set ourselves up and put in the causes and conditions for that to happen? So as you can tell, these 16 instructions are taking us way beyond, say, using meditation for relaxing or using mindfulness to be clearer and sharper about, whatever we're engaged in. It's really a formula for full awakening and useful for sort of every other healthy means that we may wish to utilize, really. Ways of helping us physically and mentally, emotionally, to be able to be happier and more at ease in our life, and to see the way things actually are, see the truth of the Dhamma. So in this preparation, we find our posture. The key in whatever posture you're taking is to have a straight spine. And even as I say that, I think, oh, that may sound like it's rigid, but we don't want that. We want it to be straight but relaxed so that the energy can flow freely up and down the spine. This is key. A lot of times we don't hear that there's a lot of, I want to say energy is really important to meditation, and not just the energy like I'm energetic and alert. That's crucial. But also the feeling or the experience of energy, as you might think of chi or prana, the spiritual energy that comes through the body. And this is something that moves through the body and can move through the body based on the way our mind is thinking. That our mind actually leads this energy, and this is how you start to experience piti and sukha, the spiritual energies that present in the body, but are actually this beautiful, delightful, happy energy that also helps the mind come to the point of samadhi. So, taking our posture with a straight spine, but relaxed and at ease, comfortable, and to whatever degree possible, happy. And then we bring up mindfulness. Sometimes things have been translated like bringing mindfulness to the fore or in front of us, but it's much more appropriate, I think, to just think of establishing mindfulness. So we establish mindfulness and look at like what is the feeling of that. And when I do the guided meditation, I'll see if I can drop in some words that help make that clear. So establishing mindfulness. And then the first instruction that the Buddha gives is to mindfully breathe in. And in the translation I offered in the handout is from Bhante Sujato on Sutta Central. Breathe in heavily, or mindfully breathe out heavily. Other translations have said long. You get the idea though. It's like the breath, noticing that the in-breath is long and in-breath. And the out-breath is long. And the second instruction, being aware that the in-breath is short or light, and the out-breath is short or light. Now in practice, it's not about making your breath long or short, and it's not about kind of waiting, starting out breathing more heavily and then waiting for it to lighten up either. I feel like these instructions are really just trying to help us focus on the breath and be really aware of it, really observing it. And what we're observing in this length of the breath means that we're present through the whole in-breath and the whole out-breath, and that we're observing some quality of that breath. It could be other things that you might observe about it, but it really, in the end, doesn't matter. What matters is that we are focused, and that it's focused on the breathing, because this is where there's an intersection between our physical experience and our spiritual experience. This is where the spiritual energy is contacted. There's a connection there. And when we're aware of our breathing, obviously it's what sustains our life, but we're also aware of the breath energy. And in the Thai forest tradition, they call it breath energy. And this is where you start to understand that this is really about the same kind of energy we talk about with, Tai Chi or Qigong or acupuncture, yoga. It's an energy that's in the body, but it's also a spiritual energy. And you start to realize the spiritual nature of it more as you practice these instructions or other forms of meditation that lead to PT, where there might be tingling in the body or some kind of soft sort of fullness or a very strong delight. And if you're experiencing that kind of thing, you'll kind of recognize when you experience it. When you're in, it's usually when you're in a situation where we're brought to reflect on the spiritual. There's a spiritual activity or a spiritual experience. It used to happen to me when I was a kid in church. I'd be sitting there with my parents. In those days, kids were required to attend the sermon, the whole thing, and sit still. And I would feel my legs swell up, just like they were huge, or my hands. It took a long time to find out that this is PT. This is one of the many ways it can present itself. And sometimes it's not as kind of obvious as that. It's more like a really, really uplifted feeling that you also might get in a holy place. So we start to recognize there are experiences beyond the physical that are crucial to our spiritual development. And it's helpful to notice them. And it starts right here at these first two instructions with being present with the breath. So one thing that might be useful, and I know this is useful for me, before I meditate, to set an intention. When I do this, it's often the case that the meditation itself is deeper. So the intention to be present and aware and available to this spiritual experience. I'll get to the questions later. I see a question coming up on the screen, and I know we're going to have time for that. So when we're observing our breathing in the beginning, first of all, we want to be kind and gentle to our body and mind. I don't see much value in using force or any kind of inner harshness. So, instead of demanding that my mind become quiet and I focus on the breath, it helps to just first relax and then just start paying attention to the breath in a kind and gentle way. And then when I'm able and ready, there's really a connection with the breathing. And allow that connection with the breathing to come about, to unfold, not by force, but by, it's not even quite invitation. It's more like just the gentle presence, as if you're going to be listening to a good friend tell you an important story. Really be there with the breathing. And then sometimes these first two instructions, and I really hold them as almost as one, because whether the breath happens to be long or short, I can notice that, but it's not like it has to come in that order. And noticing if the out breath is long or short. If my mind is really busy, I'm coming away from a lot of activity, then I might just internally say that the breath is long. This is an in-breath. It's a long in-breath. This is an out-breath. That's a long out-breath or short, either way, whatever it is. And it's kind of like give myself a chance to settle my mind more on the breathing. But then there comes a point where, at least for me, the mind gets bored with this. Um, and that's my cue to move on to the third instruction. This is where we're paying attention, we're experiencing the whole body. And we move from just observing or knowing that we're breathing in and breathing out to really being sensitive to, we're training ourselves to be sensitive to the whole body. And this is oftentimes where we really start to feel that spiritual energy already. That it's it may be that that energy is somehow surrounding the body. And when we pay attention to the whole body, of course, as with all of these instructions, it depends on what is actually happening with you at the moment. So if the body's in pain, we might give some extra attention to that area. Or we might want to turn our attention away from that area, depending upon what's happening, and use the areas of the body that are not in pain as kind of the baseline of what we're paying attention to. It's useful to experiment and to see what it is that brings more and more tranquility to the body. So when we turn to training ourselves to experience the whole body, sometimes people have trouble with this part because they've been thoroughly trained in having their attention focused on one very small point, like the tip of the nose or the upper lip or something like that. And then they have difficulty recognizing, how can I expand my awareness enough to take in the whole body? But that's exactly what the Buddha is asking us to do, to really be able to take in the whole body. And again, I feel like this is important for our experience of energy. That this is about taking in the energetic experience of the whole body. And the fourth instruction is to calm the body, still the body's motion, is what Bhante Sujato is translating here. Oftentimes, this is interpreted as calming the breath, but I feel like it includes more than that. That this is our preliminary stage of experiencing tranquility in the body, or putting in the causes and conditions for tranquility in the body. And this, of course, is one of the factors, the 7 factors of enlightenment. We need tranquility of the body and tranquility of the mind. The full tranquility of the body and mind will come more later, as we'll notice later on. We'll talk about the way the Buddha associates mindfulness of in and out breathing with the 7 factors of enlightenment. But here is the place where we start. And we experience this as the body calming down more and more. And maybe we experience not just the breath calming down, but as this translation says, the motion of the body, maybe the any kind of agitation in the body. And sometimes we might even be able to feel the beating of our heart and experience that slowing down. And what this, the point and the purpose, I think, is that as we calm down the body and we start to experience the energy of the body. We're gaining more and more comfort with the body. And it's really providing a solid foundation for where we're going in later instructions onto feeling, mind, and Dhamma. So with these four, the Buddha said we're fulfilling mindfulness of the body, that foundation of mindfulness of the body, because it is observing one aspect of the body. You're observing the breath, and we're observing the whole body. It's not, the practices of the body as a corpse, the 9 meditations that the Buddha gives for that, or other meditations that the Buddha gives in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. But it is a crucial one that actually we can use really any time to help the body to relax and prepare us for deeper meditation. So one point that's important here is that the Buddha talks about being aware of our in-breath and our out-breath during each instruction. So we want to, it sounds like, well, am I now paying attention to 2 different things? I'm paying attention to my in-breath and the whole body, paying attention to my out-breath and the whole body. And it is. It's like putting the awareness of the breath a little bit on the back burner. And it's not like you really have to think about it as we get used to it. It's more like feeling it, but you're still very clearly connected to the breath. You know that you're breathing in when you're breathing in, and you know that you're breathing out when you're breathing out. And you're still aware of the entire body, or you're training to still the body, to calm the body. And so it's key that we stay with the breath. If we forget the breath, the meditation doesn't deepen in the same way. So this is the staying connected with that breath, especially as we recognize its spiritual impact and potential. And then, so that's our grounding. That's the grounding we can come back to when we're feeling agitated, upset, worried, scared, or overjoyed. That's the breath that's the grounding that we can come back to in the breath. So we want to really keep that going through the whole practice, knowing that we're breathing in, knowing that we're breathing out, which of course in daily life is not something we know. We're not aware of it. Although it's my experience that we can gain some real benefit from becoming aware of it as we do other things. If we're aware that we're breathing in and aware that we're breathing out while we're driving, for example, or running, or doing any number of things, there might be a much deeper sense of calm and happiness. And so that's something that I always encourage people to try. But it's not the official mindfulness of in and out breathing. It's a way of using mindfulness of in and out breathing as a subsidiary technique for having more clarity and presence as we're doing other things in our life, and more peace and calm